Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you Mythic Gaming. And we have Tim Espy and Zack McAtee here, our gamesters, and I look forward to tonight's show. Greetings, Tim. Greetings, Zack. How are you?
Doing well yourself.
I'm doing phenomenally well.
I'm doing well as well. Thank you very much.
Good. What is new and exciting in the name of gaming, in the world of gaming?
I figured I can kind of fill in what's been going on at level one since we last talked. It's been a little bit, I think, right? It's been we didn't talk last month, so maybe the month before, so I forget exactly. Time is interesting, I guess we'll say. Um, but yeah, so as is usual, we've been super busy at the store. There's been a bunch of stuff that's been coming out, of course. Pokemon and Wizards of the Coast slash Magic likes to keep us nice and busy, which is good, which is good. As long as the stuff is good and it has been. But I'll get into that. Um, but um, but yeah, so along the Magic front, we had a big release happen. So I know I've talked a little bit about like the different ways, like the different formats of how to play Magic the Gathering, right? Um, the biggest, most popular format right now is called Commander, where it's uh a singleton format, so you can only have one of each of the unique card, except for the basic lands and stuff. And there's some other little tiny rules that come along with it. Um, but that's the biggest format now. Whereas previously it used to be called Standard was the biggest format, and that is sets that are just the newest sets. It's just they call them blocks or whatever, where it's only X number of the newest sets that have released or what's legal to play in the standard format is what it's called. So standard hasn't been doing too great because they've been focusing a lot on Commander. Um, so with this new product that came out, it's called Magic Foundations. So how this is special, so you know how normally Magic has when they release the sets, they are like usually themed. Like Bloomborough was very animal themed, and
Yeah.
Kaldheim is like the Norse theme and everything. Um, every so often they would release core sets. I'm sure Hercules and Zack, you've come across them. You'll just see core set, 2020 or 2021, or even core set, 2012 or something from back in the day.
Yes, I've
Um,
watched those many times, and I think I
right.
have 1 year course set somewhere in the
Yeah.
basement in a
Yep.
box.
Yep. Um, those are they're not themed around anything. They're just ways to get what they're called like staples of the format, stuff that you kind of always kind of need in your decks when you're playing like shocks, things that deal 2 damage, Land of War Elves, stuff that taps for mana and stuff. Um, just kind of the staples of the format. So they can have them in the format, but without trying to shove them in sets where they don't really fit thematically.
Hmm.
Um, so what Foundations is basically a core set, so there's no real theme to it. But what makes it special is that the cards that are in Foundations are standard legal for 5 years, whereas normally standard rotation is about 18 months or so.
Wow, I didn't realize.
Um, so this is nearly triple, the set legality in terms of time. So it's just product that will be available for the next 5 years. So you feel like when you're buying that product, you can use it. It's not going to get like out of rotation is what it's called. So it's hard with standard because you're spending not a cheap it's not an inexpensive format to play, especially with the good cards being sometimes they could be $80 a piece, and you need four of them to give you an idea sometimes. So with foundations being standard legal for 5 years, these cards are just out there and available, and it kind of keeps the price down, and that you can be using these for 5 years. It's not going to be like, oh, I spent $300 on these cards, I can only use it for 2 more months, and now it's out of rotation. You know, so
That's
um,
really true in tournaments, though, right? In terms of home use and playing cards with your friends, you don't have to expire the cards.
Right. Yes, of course. So, like, what is called the kitchen table magic,
Uh,
is, like the home people that are playing with their cards at home, not coming to stores or doing like tournaments or big tournaments and stuff. Yeah, of course, you can have your own rules. You can set whatever you want, but I'm speaking all in terms of if you're trying to play at a store or during a tournament or something.
yeah.
But that's what makes Magic great, right? We've talked about it a million times, where you can play it however you want. You can, if we all played here at my house, I could say, no, who cares? We can just choose whatever we want. That's what makes Magic really fun.
Well, that is great, and that is again, it's better on the pocketbook because I've been involved with pricey hobbies, and stability is always good.
Right. And actually, I've had the same conversation two times this past week. Excuse me. Where I explained to people where that we've had a big influx of um, newer players, which is really nice, coming into the store, and we've been helping them pick out some decks and showing them the ropes, if you will. There's a lot to learn, especially in the beginning. Um, but what I tell people is, it's can be overwhelming, but that's what an LGS, a local game store, is for. It's to go to the store and ask questions, and especially with this stuff, like there is a lot. I'm sure, like you said, you've been around, you know how it is, and it can be a little overwhelming. But but uh but yeah, so it's been a good time. I've lost my train of thought where I was going with that. Where was I going with that?
Well, you were giving us an introduction to both Magic and you said the Pokemon deck, so I'm assuming that you were heading there.
Okay, right. Yeah, so we also had a new Pokemon set that has come out. I think it was since we last talked, or since we last spoke, excuse me. Um, so as well with Pokemon, or with as is Magic Pokemon, there's also um themes kind of with the sets that come out. And they usually focus around some certain Pokemon, usually fan favorites, or if they're trying to introduce a new one, they'll focus on that a little bit. Um, so this most recent set is called Pokemon Surging Sparks. Um, and as you can imagine, it sounds kind of like electric themed. And one
Yeah.
of the big, if not the biggest, I guess, electric themed Pokemon is Pikachu. Of course, everybody knows who Pikachu is.
Yes,
Um,
it's amazing. Your Pikachu has staying power.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Um, our really close friend from the store, John. He one of his favorite is Pikachu. So he's still one of the most fan favorites. But yeah. So this set is, Pikachu is a main focus, and the biggest. And there's a big card that came out in it that's like super special and super rare, and the normal Pokemon collector hobby stuff where the card comes out and it's worth a bunch of money. So it's fun with that. But yeah, so it's been bringing a whole bunch of new people in and everything. Again, people loving Pikachu. um it's always been a fan favorite. But yeah, so new Pokemon as usual. And then we also did our Pokemon League Cup and our League Challenge since we last spoke. I kind of promoted it a little bit last time. Um, but yeah, so both went really well, and actually, there was a new person that came, or newer person that came, and she came in second of the entire tournament. So it was a really good turnout, and she did really well, and everybody was super happy. So it was a good story for the day. Um, but yeah, so we've just been super busy with our Pokemon and our Magic stuff. Um, we had our Black Friday sale since we last spoke too. Um, so as you
And
can imagine, that was pretty busy as well.
yeah, I could imagine. I've seen the store when the tournaments were taking place in the past, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think what else. I'm also losing my voice a little bit, like I mentioned before. I've been
Take a break. We'll
yeah,
talk Zach, and then we can come back to you.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
get some tea with honey.
Yeah, yep.
Good idea.
Um, so I figured last time it was just the two of us, Hercules, and we talked about the crane, specifically about the folk hero that they have, Kakita. And so I got so caught up in that we didn't talk about the other families of the crane. So I figured I would just go through those so that we went over them all, and then the next time we can move on to the next clan. So it should be shorter than last time. So starting from where we left off as a refresher for Tim, I'm not sure if you got to listen to it. The Crane are the main political movers in the world of the Legend of the Five Rings. They are typically advisors to the Emperor. Typically, a lot of members of his court will be Cranes or people who married into the Crane, etc. Usually, the spouse of whoever is sitting on the throne is almost certainly Crane. They have a reputation for beauty, for art, and perfection, which is one of their highest tenets. Is they try to quote unquote strive for perfection in all things. So they don't believe in doing something in a middling way. It's if you're going to do it, you're going to commit to it and do it fully to the best of your ability. So last time we talked about the founding of the Crane clan. The kami who founded them was Lady Doji, and then we spoke about her husband, who was Kakita. He was a folk hero, as I mentioned, kind of a traveling swordsman who eventually overcame great trials, became wed to her, and went on to live a very exciting life, rising up the ranks of Rokugan society. So starting from that point, the main family of the Crane is obviously the Doji family, the one descended directly from the kami who created the clan. Their primary holding is a castle known as Kyujin Doji, which is the esteemed house of the Crane. It sits atop a coastal plateau and is second only to the imperial palace in both beauty and height. And then aside there, as a show of respect, no building in Rokugan can be as tall as the Emperor's palace. so every castle always has like one less floor than the Emperor's castle. So this one is very clearly the Crane went out of their way to make sure that this was the second most beautiful castle. They did not want to try and usurp that from the Emperor. Inside the castle, they have what they called the Thousand Blossom Path, which is a garden that their magic users keep in bloom throughout every season of the year. During winters in Rokugan, the weather can be very, very difficult to travel through, so a lot of places will hold what they call a winter court, where guests from other clans, emissaries from small families in the clans will all come together to kind of get to know what's going on in the area, make requests if they have any, make any grievances known, request like military aid, that kind of thing. Every year, there's also an imperial winter court, which is the one that the emperor presides over and attends. And 9 times out of 10, that is held here at the Doji Castle, as it is the second most beautiful building after the Emperor's own palace. One of the cool things I like about this palace, and if you ever get the chance to look up some maps, they did a really beautiful one recently in the newest books. Each of the clans has effectively a guest house in the castle that is built in the architectural style of the clan. So it's like a little piece of home for them. When they come to this court here, the crab guest house is built by crab engineers. The dragon is built by dragon engineers. They did a lot to like make everyone feel represented. I just thought that was it's a nice visual touch when you look at the map, how you can point them out and be like, oh, this must be the one for this clan based off of the colors and the architecture styles. Most of the Crane Clan champions tend to come from this family, and they are also typically the Emerald champion, which serves as effectively the Emperor's right-hand marshal man. Combination of bodyguard and not gopher, because that's kind of like disrespectful, but you know, like the person who does what the Emperor needs doing, I suppose. Primarily, people from this family tend to be courtiers and magistrates.
Like the hand of the king in Game of Thrones, I guess.
Yes, yeah, it's literally like the right hand man to the Emperor. Like, you know, whatever he needs them to do, whether it be I need you to go and fetch something or someone, I need you to like bring someone to justice, I need you to kill someone, defend someone, like that's what they're there for. The second family is also descended from Lady Doji. So when the Kami Lady Doji married Kakita, they did something a bit differently than most of the other clans, and they said that each of their children could choose which family to belong to. And so they said you could either take Doji surname or the Kakita surname. Those who went with Doji, as I said, tended to be more politically inclined, whereas people who decided to go towards calling themselves a Kakita were more artisans, smiths, things of that nature. So they were founded by the fourth child of Lady Doji, and they specialized in what's known as Iijutsu fighting, which is, you'll see a lot in anime and things like that, where the katana starts in the sheath, a strike is made, and the blade returns to the sheath after the strike is completed, rather than staying out and kind of continuing it back and forth. So it's a single strike or quick draw style. Might be a weird analogy, but like if you picture like Wild West cowboys, the standoff, and then the sudden drawing of the weapons, the firing, that's a lot of what Iijutsu is. It's the standoff, the mounting tension before one or both of them suddenly moves, they strike, and you see who's standing and who's falling down. Kakita himself is the one who developed this school, and he was very obviously the master of it of the age, and that has become the most common dueling style throughout the entire empire, only contested by one of the dragon schools, which we'll be talking about in the next one of these. So the Kakita, they really drove home that they quested for excellence in all things. So they had artisans of practically every strength, whether it be poetry, song, dance, it could be weapon crafting, armor crafting, flower decoration, pretty much anything. They just were inclined towards those creative efforts. Most notably, as you would expect from a family descended from a great swordsman, they tended to have very good swordsmiths who were sought out across the empire. So the way that the system works in 5e is there are effectively qualities that you can give to items, which are called patterns. Typically, it's described as maybe a specific type of steel, a specific method of crafting. Kakita patterns tend to be expensive and sought after because they represent very high quality that will last for a very long time. One of the interesting things about the Kakita, before we move on, is they have a great curse upon their castle. So long ago, there was the Grand Master of the Elements, was a Shugenja, a magic user who was very well respected and might have let that get a bit to his head. So he was coming to visit Kyujin Kakita, which is the main castle of the Kakita family. They were excited, they were honored, they could not wait to host him. And so in anticipation, ever since he sent the letter saying that he would be coming, they kept the gates to the castle open, day and night, 24/7. Just before he arrived, A strong wind closed the gates. He was so incensed that he laid a curse upon the castle. If any child is born while the gates of the castle are closed, they can never touch steel. If they ever draw a steel weapon, the crane in the castle would descend into madness and fall on each other. And I believe that has happened at least once in the lore. But so you get some interesting characters that they're like, oh, I'm Kakita, which is a main swordsmith school, but because of this curse, I was forced to never study martial arts because the risk of me drawing a blade is too powerful.
This is very rich culture, and it really changes the nature of role playing. I remember I used to run things in Thieves World, which was an anthology series by Robert Asprin. He started it with Lynn Abbey, and I had it run concurrently with the stories in the book.
Ooh, nice.
So there was a phenomenal amount of detail, and if someone had read the stories, and a lot of the people playing did, it added a lot to the game because actions that normally wouldn't mean anything acquired deep meaning that communicated a lot to the players. So as you're describing this, I'm thinking of that, and it's amazing. I'm sure people love your game.
That's I appreciate that. I hope they do. They keep coming back. That's the way that I say it. If they didn't like it, I think they would tell me or leave. So that's that's about all I got. There are two more families in the crane. I'm going to save my favorite for last. So the next one are the Asahina. So this is the crane's primary branch of magic users. They tend to focus on air magic and, by and large, lean towards pacifism. They will fight to defend if necessary, but they will almost always try to avoid it by any means that they can. They focus a lot on healing magic, recovery, cleansing magic, things of that nature. And so they got their start from a different clan, which is a trend that we're going to start seeing as we talk about these other ones. So in this case, in the year 353, the Lion and the Phoenix clans were both at war. Isawa Asahina was the master of air, so he was the strongest air magic user that the Phoenix had. His brother died in the war, and he wanted vengeance against the Lion. The Crane at the time were allies with the Phoenix, but because of various social compacts and policies that they put into place, they were not able to assist with their own military. So what they did to help instead is they put pressure on the Lion in imperial court. They tried to force a truce so that the Phoenix would stop dying because they didn't want to lose their ally. This is a great and good thing. That went through. The war was stopped by the emperor. The problem is that Isawa Asahina saw this as denying him the chance to get revenge for his brother's death. It sent him into a blind rage. He began to wander through the Crane lands alone, using fire magic to destroy all people or villages he came across. No matter who they were, didn't matter. He was razing the entire place to the ground. Finally, the daughter of the current Crane champion, Doji Kiriko, she was desperate to protect the Crane people. She didn't know what else could be done. She knew that technically his cause was just. He had been wronged. He was just taking it out in the wrong way. So she went over towards the village of Kimura, where she knew that he was headed. And instead of fighting him, she instead placed herself between him and the villagers. Every time that he would throw a spell or attack with his sword at the townsfolk, she would leap in front of the attack and take it, never returning fire in any way. When her wounds overcame her and she finally fell, he came to his senses and realized what he had been doing. Her selflessness had made him realize just how far he'd fallen, and he became deeply ashamed. In future years, this became known as the victory with no strike, because she, quote unquote, defeated an enemy without a strike, without drawing steel. as a result of the deep shame and guilt that he carried, he decided to quit the Phoenix clan and swear off of violence. He also forsook all of the fire magic he had used in his rampage. He then nursed Doji Kiriko back to health, married her, and entered the Crane clan. And so from then, they focused exclusively on air magic, on healing, and specifically, they also create what are known as Sangusiri. It is a small charm that is imbued with like a spell. So if you think of the term good luck charm, but like literal. So it's a little good luck charm that has like a spell in it that will see one use and then go away. But yeah, so that's their magic users descended from another clan and from a clash of great violence. But then out of that violence bloomed what is, I believe, the strongest healing magic in the entire empire.
Wow.
And then you go.
Comprehensive.
Yeah, I poured through and tried to pick things that I thought would be like the most interesting and definitive. And so the final ones, which are my personal favorites, are the Daidoji. So if you notice that sounds a lot like Doji, there's a reason for that. They are the main military branch of the Crane. Their primary warriors are known as the Iron Cranes. They're typically hired out as bodyguards, as like front linesmen in battle. They also have a subgroup they call the Harriers. So the Harriers are effectively less dishonorable ninja, I suppose. So in Rokugan, there's a stat called status I've mentioned before, and it ranks where you are on the societal ladder. So like the Emperor has 100 status. A typical samurai might have like 25 status. Ninjas have 0 because it is so dishonorable. So Harriers are a little bit higher than that. They are also so secretive that no other clan knows they exist, and most Crane don't know they exist. So they're like super secret forces that are hidden. Their main thing is they will never target civilians, unlike an assassin or otherwise. They will only focus on military targets in warfare. Typically, they see a lot of use as scouts. They're used for military sabotage, maybe going and like replacing a map, deliberately making someone think there's less forces at a certain location. They are trained to, quote unquote, negate the advantage of 50 plus enemy soldiers per Harrier. So one Harrier is supposed to be able to do enough chaotic damage to effectively make 50 or more people useless in an upcoming fight.
So they're very heroic then, in their own way.
Yeah, and that's they have principles that they stick to. But then obviously the lore's been going on so long, of course they've dipped into evil. Everyone's dipped into evil at some point. The big flaw with them, their fatal flaw, I would say. So just like real life Japan, we mentioned this, Rokugan was very close to the outside world. They had at one point accepted in envoys and emissaries from European, effectively, countries, and things went bad. Those visitors attacked the Empress and the castle, and after that, Rokugan kind of shut the borders for the most part. One of the things that is highly illegal in Rokugan is known as Gaijin pepper, what we would call gunpowder. The Harriers are the only faction that uses gunpowder. So they'll commonly use it when they're trying to take down a bridge, make it weaker so that when the enemy goes to cross it, it'll collapse and take some of their men with it to destroy stone castles and make an opening. But it is highly illegal, and in the lore at one point it was discovered that they were doing this, and pretty much every Harrier was put to death by the Crane clan, because as I said, most Crane didn't even know they existed, let alone that they were doing something this far off the beaten path. But yeah, very useful. I thought it was they're a cool take on ninjas. But so this family, part of the reason they're my favorite is how they got founded. So Doji Hayaku was brother to the Crane representative that fought Fu Leng, the great eagle, and defeated him on the Day of the Thunder. Initially, she had a male twin who was chosen to go. He was assassinated, and so even though she was not really trained as a fighter, she took up the sword and took his place and helped take down Fu Leng. Unfortunately, almost everyone who did take into that fight died. I think only 2 of them escaped. So she was lost, her body was lost, as well as the ancestral sword of the Crane, which had been with her. This was a great loss to the clan as a whole, something that had been kind of itching at them ever since. And so Doji Hayaku, his mother told him that she had a dream that his sister was suffering in the Shadowlands somehow. She was still alive. She was still being punished by the corruption and evil magics there. So he decided by himself to go into the Shadowlands and try and find her. He traveled south down to the wall that borders onto the evil lands of Fu Leng. He asked the crab for assistance, for weapons training, anything of that nature, and they basically just mocked him and said that what he was doing was impossible and foolhardy, refused to help him. They allowed him to pass, but they refused to do anything to aid him. 3 years later, with no word in between, he returns to Crane Lands. He had a large scar across his throat and was rendered mute, and his once black hair was now permanently white from whatever terrors he saw. He had been unable to find his sister, but he found the ancestral sword, and both his sister and her twin souls had been trapped in the sword, and that's how they were suffering in the Shadowlands. He was rewarded for completing this deed by being allowed to start his own family, and took the name Daidoji, which means defenders of the doji. And now it is a common thing amongst all Crane, not even just this family, that they will dye their hair white as a sign of respect for his loyalty and sacrifice.
Wow. Again, the richness is amazing. The texture is amazing. The potential for immersion is amazing.
They have a lot of, like I said, it's been going on for years and years, and like lore has been rebooted a few times, but for the most part, it was the same timeline, quote unquote, from the game's inception until I want to say the early 2000s, something like that, like one of the first major company switches. So they started like, in universe, oh, it's year 1 or whatever. They went up to, I think, almost year 2000 something before stuff got rebooted. And there's just tons of stuff. Any family, any like you can just like throw a dart and then, okay, this is the topic. I'm going to see if I can find anything interesting about this topic, and you will find at least like 10 things. Like,
and because it's so vast and it's been going on for so many years, how would somebody who is fascinated by what they're hearing get involved in it? I know you've shared this information before, but what's a good entry point for that universe?
So the way that I got into it was the novels got me very interested in the setting, and then that made me read the core book, and it went from there. But in between those, after I read the first novel, I spent a lot of time on the Legend of the Five Rings wiki, and just going through, and almost like I just said, I would kind of be like, oh, I'm really curious. Like, I'm very new to this. I don't know anything about, say, the Dragon Clan. I'm gonna read their article, and then the article has links to the champions. It has links to like famous events. There's timelines. It's a very, very well put together and realized Wikipedia, like a fan Wikipedia, because it's not official. But there's like thousands and thousands of articles. So if you find a topic you like, you can. I always say you like fall down the hole. Like you spend hours just like I'm reading one page and opening up 10 links from that page. Then as soon as I finish reading this, now I'm reading the second one, opening up 10 more, and what. So the Wikipedia, I think, if you're the kind of person who likes that kind of research and study. Otherwise, the novels are fantastic. Point to get into it that's more, I want to say flavorful, but not flavorful. But like, they're fiction novels. They're enjoyable fiction novels that they give you enough to more than understand the setting and what's happening within the book, and enough that you're interested to learn more and like after that point.
Have some of the heroes like almost become their own thing, like a Conan or a Sir Lancelot, or have any characters like taken prominence where it becomes not about them in the world, but the world in which they're adventuring?
I would say, yeah. So we mentioned before, a big thing in the game's history is that when it was first starting out as a card game and becoming a role-playing game, the fans had impact over how the story went. What this meant is cards that saw a lot of play would get stronger versions of them printed in the next set and take more prominent places in upcoming fiction. So you can kind of watch these ebb and flows where, like, oh, during this year, like this specific character must have been really popular because they're kind of almost teleporting around the empire doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And then like, oh, and now I can see they've just kind of been forgotten and someone else has become like this main follow character. And all of it was pretty much influenced by the tournaments that the players took place in. So it's a really fun read to look at that. And like, you can find, I've seen arguments of, I've mentioned sparingly that the Mantis clan are kind of like the pirate clan of the Empire. They are a minor clan, but in the lore before it got rebooted, they finally became a major clan. And the big push for that was there was a specific character, Yoritomo, who I guess was really good in the format at the time, and Mantis stuff started winning every single tournament. So Yoritomo goes from being the clan champion who's like, yeah, I want to make us a major clan, just like all the other ones have, to now we're a major clan. Now I'm also a god. Like he just like rises up and up. And so you can find people like it's like two camps. There's people who are like, Yoritomo's awesome. And then there's people who are like, I hate Yoritomo. I always hated playing Mantis decks. They were terrible.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks. I know some people. I found in DMing games over the years that not 100% of the time, but most of the time, people either accept a challenge of being a particular type of character. Some people play idealized self, where whatever they see themselves as within the world, ideally, they become that. And some people play shadow elements, like things that they would not normally do or ever do in like life in our active life. They do it in the game.
Yeah, very much.
It's been like a fascinating thing about the role playing and incarnating into these different characters.
Right. Like I always prefer to play like you said, like idealized self. Like I always just like to play myself and what would I do in the situation,
That's what I do most of the time as well when I'm playing. I rarely get a chance to play though. I'm the DM. I've only played a handful of times, but I always did idealized self when I played, and my NPCs are mostly idealized selves.
I love sitting there and trying to like examine the NPCs and pick out like what parts of me I think each one of them are, kind of thing. Is like when you're making them, you don't usually think of it that way, but then once like the party meets them and they start interacting with them and stuff, you kind of like, wow, it's almost like deja vu,
Uh-huh. Now, Tim, do you have the Legend of Five Rings in level 1? Can people get it from there?
No, we don't have any copies of the RPG. I got what was it, Zach? Was it the board game or something?
Yes, it's there's a board game called River of Gold. It's pretty fun. I mean, if you don't mind me segueing to board games. So it's set in Legend of the Five Rings in the current timeline, and the coolest thing they did with it is going back to the tournaments what they did is they had an author write up these small pieces of fiction, 5 pieces of fiction, and then everyone voted on which clan from those pieces would resolve the issue. And that has become canon in both the game and in the novel coming out, I think, next year. But so it takes place by the River of Gold, which is a nickname for the most profitable trading route through the country. It goes from like the heart of the country down to the coast, so it's very good for international coastal travel, all things of that nature. 4 main clans have holdings on the edges of the river. The crane, who we just talked about, the mantis, who are the primary seafarers, the crab, they get a lot of their mercantile stuff done here. They get a lot of money for their war supplies, and then the scorpion as well, who I am sure don't do any black market sales. It's all strictly legal. Absolutely. So in this game, each player is one of those 4 clans. The board is very nice quality. It's a weird thing, but like when you collect a lot of board games, there's small bits like that where you're just like, ooh, okay, nice detail. Like, oh, the way this card back feels, like it's got a really good texture, small quality of life things. The board is very large. It's very easy to read. It's got a lot of gold embossed details all over it. It's very thematic and looks like a lot of the maps that put in RPG books recently. And effectively, the way it works is each player has 2 boats that are on the river. Each turn, you roll a die that you can use to move your boat or activate other things on the map. You're trying to buy up storefronts, you're trying to sway local ambassadors and townspeople, and then you're trying to prepare for the Emperor's visit when he sails down. And that's like a mid-game point. So you have like the first era, the Emperor visits, and then you have the second era. And it's basically whoever has the most like victory points money at the end wins. So there's a lot of wheeling and dealing. They do a very cool thing where you can gain benefits from buildings you don't own. So if I stop on Hercules, like one of your buildings, I can put a token there. I don't get the benefit that you get for owning it, because every building has 2 different benefits, one for the owner and one for other people. But I will always get that second benefit anytime your shop is activated. So it's fun, like you're investing in each other almost. You're like, oh, okay, you got that place that I wanted, but like now I'm a shareholder, sort of. And then you can also make deliveries where you'll get cards that say, oh, this noble, maybe they want 2 pieces of fabric and a parchment. And then like you're trying to gather those resources, and if your boat hits a certain point, you can drop it off and it's victory points. We've only gotten to play through it once. I'm hoping to do it again in the next couple of weeks, because it is a longer game. I would say like hour and a half or so. But it was our first time playing, so that obviously adds time. But yeah, a lot of fun and very good quality components.
I remember the box being very heavy.
Yes, that's the boats. I loved it. The boats are shaped different. The maples, the wooden like maples, are shaped different for each of the clans. Like, so you can see like the crabs are kind of like they're a lot more blocky because they're defensive. The crane is very elegant. Like, so they put a lot of work into even the small details.
And Tim, any other role-playing games or role-playing related products? I know D&D's come out with this huge, thick book, and I've seen D&D coloring books, D&D cookbooks, D&D miniatures. I've seen lots of D&D products.
Yeah, so they updated, they did the new updated DM book, they did the new updated player's handbook as well. But those were the new D&D stuff. There was something else coming out in January or February that was the new version. Excuse me, maybe the Monster Manual.
That sounds right.
Yeah, like the new version of the Monster Manual is coming out.
Mhm.
But something adjacent. So I received a phone call a couple days ago from, her name was Arwen, which is a lovely name. but she runs or is in charge of and works at the Wayne Public Library, the big public library on Valley Road in Wayne. Um, and she wanted to start spreading the word, and I told her that to stop by the store, and she gave me some flyers and um and just to help spread that they're starting to do some RPG nights and some anime and manga nights for 18 plus, as well as young teen as well. So two separate groups. And then also a board game night as well. That's all starting in January. So just trying to, spread community stuff without or through in within the community.
If you
So it all starts in January. So I know that she said she's going to be posting some stuff, through their social media, the Wayne Public Library social media, and she's going to be sending over some flyers and stuff for us. So we'll have some stuff listed up at the store and everything. But yeah, so that was D&D adjacent.
If you can send me some JPEGs of the flyers, not as a document because I have a hard time copying those, but if you can send me some JPEGs, I'll gladly put them up as well. Helps spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I gave her the store email. Um, so she's gonna send stuff over. So it'll be super easy to send some stuff over.
Now, how is the how are the new rules being received? I've gotten feedback from a few people, some of whom said that if you have the Tasha's Guide to Everything and a couple of the other peripheral rule books that they've come out with, you have most of the changes in there. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the feedback I've gotten so far. Some people say it's streamlined and less clunky. What feedback have you gotten from it?
Yeah, that is pretty much mirrors what you've heard as well. Um, I haven't heard any. The only, well, I'll say, quote, negative stuff that I heard about it was stuff before it even came out. So it was kind of people jumping the gun with their thoughts and judging it before it came out. But ever since that it's come out, I mean, sales are always a good indicator. It's been selling well. We sold through our alternate cover DM guides. Our players handbooks have been selling well, so you know sales are a good indicator, and um and the sales have been good. So but yeah, the feedback that I've heard, like you said, is that it kind of streamlined some stuff, and got rid of some of the chunkiness and some weird interactions and stuff from what I've heard.
And they came out with the thick guide to the realms, to the to different planets. It's kind of like it had everything in there. Greyhawk, the Forgotten Realms, uh, or I forget it's Forgotten Realms, Forbidden Realms, but they had a lot of the different worlds of D&D in this book. I looked through it and I was impressed by it, but the things that I'd be interested in learning about, they had very little information, just a couple of paragraphs in the whole book. So that kind of put a damper on my pouring through that and studying it.
Yeah, they've released some cool ancillary additional books and big tomes of things, and so there's some big huge boxes. I forget exactly what they are right now. With some D&D stuff, with a bunch of books and some DM screens and a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, so D&D has still been very popular.
And now there are rumors that Elon Musk wants to buy Hasbro.
Oh, gee.
So
Interesting.
people have been talking about that and their reactions to that. So it's reminding me in terms of the reaction to what people thought with the OGL and how that became a big thing. And
Hmm.
this is the new big thing with D&D.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Um, wow, the hours like zooming by really fast. Um, how would people enter your universe at level one games and get involved in Pokemon and get involved in Magic the Gathering, get involved in D&D and different board games and collectibles?
Sure, I'll go real quick. Like I said, I'm losing my voice again. So yeah, best way is just on Facebook and on Instagram. You just type in level one games. We should come right up. Um, with our magic stuff. So we have a special event coming up that I wanted to talk about real quick. In the new year we do it what is the date? It's the Wednesday. So it would be the first. Yeah. So January 1st. We've been doing it's called a Chaos pre-release event. We do it every New Year's where um, we get a bunch of our old pre-release kits from throughout the year from Magic. Um, and they're basically a number goes in a hat, you pick a number, and whatever number you get correlates to the pre-release kit that you'll get. So what makes it fun is normally when with pre-release, everybody's playing the same stuff. Everybody has the same pre-release kit.
Uh-huh.
um with this it's a whole bunch of random stuff, so you could
Uh-huh.
be playing the D&D Forgotten Realms version. I could be playing the Call Time one. Zach could be playing the Strixhaven kind of Harry Potter-esque one. So it makes it real fun and it makes it really interesting, and there's also some extra packs that get thrown in to kind of spice it up. um but for this year we called it the Fry Memorial Chaos pre-release. So if you remember, there used to be the gold dog that used to be at the store.
Mhm.
um so he passed away. I think it's been a year now already. So it's his special memorial pre-release for Fry Dog. So it's just an extra special one this year. um, but yeah, so that's what's been going on and what's been coming up. Just normal Magic and Pokemon stuff, and hopefully we'll start doing some more board games at the store. It's just been a bunch of stuff going on, so it just needs some more time on. And we'll start doing board game nights again on Mondays. Hopefully, Zach, you're interested again.
Yeah.
So yeah, so always a bunch of stuff going on. So always follow us on the Facebook and
Nice.
on Instagram to keep up to date.
And has the sorting machine lost its fandom or its novelty, or are people still flocking to see it?
Oh no, so yeah, so that's still been treating us great. We're actually it's funny that you say that. So I'll talk real quick about this. If you've seen behind the counters, there's the nice fancy black metal cabinets.
Yes.
Usually, right, yeah. So there's cards in one. There's like discs in another one. Um, so the sorting machine has been going so well. We're going to be getting some more of the black cabinets to be adding more stuff online through the sorting machine. Um, so we've gotten comfortable with kind of where we're at now. So now it's time to do more. That's what it's for. Um, so yeah, so that was a conversation that me and Em were having yesterday. So this is hot off the presses. Yeah, so it's been, like I said, been going great. There's a bunch of good stuff going on at the store. A bunch of really cool trades. I posted up pictures today. Some really nice Nintendo stuff. So yeah, stuff has been going well.
Thank you very much. And Zach, how about you? How can people enter your not only your Five Rings world, but your world generally?
Yeah, so you can always find me on Facebook. You can send me an email at mrmunnin@gmail.com. And then I haven't gotten to send it to you yet, but I started putting all of the session notes from my campaigns into a blog format, and like tagging
Oh,
them.
that's
So like
cool.
I'll send you a link to that if you'd like, and then anyone can read through there. But it's basically it's just the session notes, but I write them as kind of like short stories.
Okay, great, fantastic. I thank you both. I enjoyed this conversation very much. I wish you both feel better. And I also wish you a happy holiday and a happy new year. And I look forward to seeing you soon and talking to you soon.
Same to you. It's always great.
Thank you.
Yes, have a happy holiday and a good new year if we don't see you until the new year. And it's always great talking. Thank you so much.
And next month, I have something I'll be sharing. Conan's back, and they just came out with
Oh,
game products. One of them for free on Drive-Thru RPG, where they have like
Nice.
a sampler to it, and also there's a bunch of video games. It looks like they're with Conan in the mix. So I'll give a short report on that and see if it's shown up on the store route yet.
yeah. I'll have to keep a lookout.
Okay, thanks again. This will be up by tomorrow.
Great.
Awesome. Have a
Thank you
good
so
night.
much.